Thanks for watching Be Better Golf, guys. I'm in Arizona today with Blake Cannon. Hey, Blake. Blake's a professional golfer and a really good short game coach. Today we're going to talk, Blake, about making like a good swing bottom. A lot of times, you know, it's like it feels a little duffy, like my nephew says, or a little thin. But like when, you know, if you have a good chipper out here, or pitcher of the ball, they could hit like 100 balls and like 99 of them would have that same basic sound.
Yep.
You know, regardless of really how the height and everything. So if somebody wants to just create, let's say like, hey, like the first thing I need to do is create good contact with the ball, what should they be concentrating on?
The first thing they should be focused on to create good contact is where their center of mass is at impact. So we talked about that a little bit, but we need our center of mass to be at the golf ball or in front.
Okay.
Essentially, we're going to break it down and say your chest, your shoulders need to be relatively level, so we can't add a lot of tilt this way.
Yeah.
And your chest needs to be slightly open when you get back to impact.
Okay. Can you hit a couple for us?
Sure.
So we can see.
So most of this is preset because we're not moving a lot throughout the motion. So if I preset my chest to where I'm slightly open, then I'm not tilted back.
Okay.
There's always going to be a little bit of tilt because your lead hand's, you know, above your trail. But we're trying to minimize the amount of tilt we have. And then from there, if I can just pivot around that point, then I should make good contact every time. So if I can get that set properly and make sure that my center is in front of the golf ball.
Show us what you mean by center in front of the golf ball.
So I'm going to give you guys a visual.
Yeah.
Essentially, I want this to be at or in front of the golf ball, meaning if I tilt back, that's going to push my center back here. If I close my shoulders, that's also going to move my center behind it. As long as my shoulders are relatively level and I don't come back off the golf ball at any point in the swing, my club should bottom out in front, assuming I have a functional pivot.
Okay.
So if my center stays more in front of it like this, I'm going to get that clippy sound that we're all looking for. So I want your, 3 to 4 golf balls between your heels. And I want to see you stand up vertically for me a little bit. So I want you to get your shoulders nice and relaxed.
Mm-hmm.
Now without grabbing your golf club, I want you to bend over and not add any shoulder tilt. Good. Now I want you to try and take the club without changing that relationship too much. So try not to bump your hips forward. Try not to add any tilt in your shoulders.
Yeah.
Now you're going to turn around that point, feel like your shoulders are more level throughout the swing. And as long as you keep your bottom forward, and your energy moving towards the target, you will not bottom out behind.
What do you mean keep my bottom forward?
So as long as you keep your center of mass forward in the swing, meaning you don't lean back and you don't tilt back. As long as we can preset this and just turn around that center.
Oh, that's good.
Perfect.
Yeah, so it's like if we're a hula hoop, right?
Yep.
And then you're just turning on that hula hoop. You're not moving the hub of it this way and that way.
The biggest difference between like chipping and a full swing is we can get away with having our center back a little bit more because we're dynamically moving forward and recentering more in the golf swing with full speed. And we generally have more shaft lean. So in a pitch shot, we need to be much more level and all of our tilts need to stay about the same. So we don't want to add a lot of tilt in the shoulders or in the hips.
So I got everything aimed this way more.
Yep. You're going to be about 10 degrees open.
Does that then make the plane, if I aim that way, does that make the plane more that way?
You might shift your path like 1 or 2 degrees out to in, but we want to be about 10 degrees open. Just because that 10 degrees makes it easier for us to consistently bottom out in front. Good. For most golfers, the most common issue is to set up with their center back or to get their center back into motion. That's what causes the vast majority of contact issues that I see.
So you're saying like they might set up like this, or might go and like try to lift.
That's the most common right there.
Face on its leg.
Everybody wants to try and lift the body up because people are scared of the ground. People are scared of that duffy contact.
Hit one the bad way and then the good way.
So what happens is what people try and do is they try and lift up and lift the club up, and one of two things is going to happen. You're going to stick it in the ground, or you're going to come up and hit the middle of that golf ball.
Okay.
So we don't want to lift the ball. We don't want to lift the ball with our body. We want our body to stay forward, and if anything, I always tell people, I want your energy to feel like it's moving towards the target through the shot.
So if you set up and I put this like an inch from your ear, you're never coming close to
It's never going to hit it.
Yeah, because you're never falling back. Everything's going that way.
This is the sequence of events that happens most people who struggle with chipping. They pick the club up in the backswing.
Too much angle.
Too much angle. They pick it up. They don't turn their body. And then from here, that club's coming down so steep because of how their arms are swinging that they try and back up and out of it. Then you have the bottom behind it, you have a steep angle of attack, you have all these issues, whereas if we can keep our body more forward, create a wider angle of attack, a shallower angle of attack, then you're not scared of the ground, and you're not scared to stay forward. So those two things kind of need to match up.
So for somebody who's self-diagnosed themselves that they, and I think you really have to film yourself because you can't really feel it. You'll feel wide, but you won't be.
Nobody gets wide, yeah.
Yeah. So if you've kind of filmed yourself face on and you can see like, man, I'm creating a lot of angle and then trying to let it all out, backing up. So what are some drills or some good at-home things that we can do to start developing a more consistent wider motion, especially for this basic?
A smart ball drill, which I use a lot and have in my toolkit.
Yep.
Smart ball's awesome because it gives you a sensation of what your arms are doing.
So
it gives you a feedback.
A little ball and put it here.
Put it right between your forearms, right below your elbows. This is what I'll have people do a lot because it's really, like you said, most people go, oh, I'm really wide, and their motion looks like this.
Okay.
So I'll have people hit almost rigid shots for a minute where there is literally no breakdown. So you're not allowed to break down your arm, you're not allowed to break down your wrist, and you have to hit shots with almost long, stiff arms. And I can clip it like that every single time. What I don't have is a lot of touch in my arms.
Okay.
So I don't have a lot of touch, but
for just to build the structure.
To build the structure. And then I have people hit a lot of lead arm drills too. Good.
So it's kind of like a Frankenstein shot where
you're stiff and rigid, and you're
learning how to.
You're learning how to make your body move the club instead of your arms.
Because this is the thing, Blake. I feel like I like to create a hinge so that I can make sure that I can get my swing bottom forward. You know.
So the problem is
that's the thing. You know that
if you create a lot of hinge and you're narrow, the matchup that you have to do to make it work is you have to be very patient with the butt of the club. You can't push the butt of the club forward. So for most people, when they're nervous or they're on the golf course and they're trying to make good contact, they create a lot of angle and then they push the butt forward.
Okay.
So if you push that handle from here, you're dead. That club has to go straight down into the ground.
Yeah.
So if you chip and you use a lot of angle, then you have to be very lazy with your motion to get away with it.
Oh, okay.
As opposed to, for you, if I can get you to feel like that club, so if you take it in just your left arm, and now imagine that this club is connected, there's a connection here. So as my chest turns, so does this, and see how it's still essentially pointed right down my chest line?
Yep.
As I turn through, still more or less pointed right at my chest.
So like this?
Yep. It's following you around. So it's just following me around, hit a couple like that, just one-handed. And don't let the club throw past the handle. This is a tricky one to get.
Yeah.
We don't want, when we're doing this drill, here's the key. Don't add any of that through the ball.
Okay.
So turn it, and if anything, you'll have an inverse relationship between the club and your arm. Good. Good.
Yeah, it felt really good. There's only like so much energy that the club needs, right?
It needs very little.
So that if you turn a lot and you have a lot of angle, it's like that's enough energy built up to hit it like 100 yards probably.
Well, but the thing is,
so
I could argue
that
I could argue even if I don't turn my body and I just create this much angle, that I could still create a lot of speed without even using my body. So the hinge aspect of it definitely creates a lot of angle. The problem is this is a lot harder to control your angle of attack and to control how much loft you have on it.
Okay. Gotcha.
So this relationship, I'm not saying it can't work. There's a lot of good chippers, but what you'll still see in all great chippers, whether they use more hinge or not, is their body's still moving, their body's still turning.
So I got my blue hook there, and I'm using the pivot.
Yep.
Keeping my chest moving forward. Yeah, that almost felt like I was gonna go like this, and then
Well, see,
stay forward.
if you get just a little less of this, because what's happening when you're catching the middle of the ball is you have just a little bit of this relationship. Now, if I just turn and I'm exaggerating
address
what you're doing.
or during
At
the swing?
address.
Oh, okay.
So if I exaggerate what you're doing just a little bit and I just turn and turn, as I'm getting back to the ball, my bottom should be back here.
Okay.
So by the time I get to the ball, the club's actually traveling upwards. So your low point is too far back a little bit right now.
So what's a good way for me to kind of
I want you to
assess that in my setup to be able to be able to feel that?
So I'm gonna have you hit
when
a
you
chip
just
like
do
this.
when I just do this, it feels normal. But then when I do the same thing and go to the ball, then I feel like this is really low, even though it hasn't changed at all, just because I'm so used to being like
So
that.
here's going to be your sensation. I'm going to have you take your trail foot,
Yeah.
and you're going to peg it. It's just a balance point, so it's a peg. And you're going to take your chest, and you're going to feel like your chest is oriented right over your lead thigh here. So your chest ought to feel a little flatter than you're used to, and you're just going to turn around that point without just using your back foot as a peg. What I'll do is I'll take my back foot, and it's just a balance point. I'm not putting any weight on it. And my chest is oriented right over, let's say, my lead thigh here. And I'm just turning around. You can see how this flattens me, whereas if I come here, how much more shoulder tilt I have naturally.
Yeah.
So if I can get my weight to sit, how I'm kind of, there's a line, there's no inverse relationship here. Now from here, I'm just turning, and you can see how my low point's consistently in front of the ball. And I do that a lot with people because this is the most common problem, people's body getting backwards. So what I have you do is, the one thing is try and keep your ball position normal because it's easy for it to start creeping forward. The biggest thing that I see when you're chipping is the only reason you're struggling to control the bottom is you have just a little bit more throw through it.
Okay.
So if you can keep, I'm gonna exaggerate one, a little bit more of that relationship, you're gonna get better contact off of this.
So feel like
pitch.
the club never passes my hands.
Exactly.
Ever.
Yep.
Okay.
So actually hit a couple, and I want you to start with a touch more shaft lean at address, so a little more forward press, and just maintain that throughout the motion. Yep. Good. Because this ground's firm, so I actually want the leading edge going under the ball. Good. Because now you could just do this, open up the face a little bit to start to keep the shaft forward. So just a slight bit of forward press, but open up the face.
Like that.
Yep.
And just keep it. So I feel like I'm 0.
Yep. I want you to maintain
8,
that throughout
and
the
then
motion.
I just feel like I keep 8.
Good. Because what's happening is you're getting because this ground, although the grass is relatively long, this ground's really firm.
Okay.
Your club's getting too much skip. You're bottoming out just behind it, gets too much skip. Whereas on this firm stuff, just keep a little bit more shaft lean actually, so the club gets underneath it.
If you guys are interested in more information about Blake, go to the link in the description below. I'll have his email there, and also information about milolinesgolf.com, where Blake is a contributing instructor. And be sure to hit the subscribe button to this video. Thanks for watching. Bye.